Good afternoon. Welcome to the podcast.
There's so many people here already.
I know, we got
That's
like
brilliant.
13 entire people watching,
we are
and
truly
probably
blessed.
only half of them are bots.
Yes.
So,
Oh,
so I just noticed to my extreme amusement that because we are multicasting today to your Twitch, my Twitch, and YouTube, anything that I type in the chat box in StreamYard comes up on your Twitch stream as if you typed it.
yes, and
So
vice versa.
I promise to use my powers for good.
Well, I have.
Oh yeah, you can do that too, can't you?
Do it as well.
Mutually assured
Yes.
destruction.
Exactly. Mad.
Hello,
Oh,
everyone.
wow.
Welcome to the stream. How's everybody doing out there? So, I have
doing much better than I have not had a good week.
Yeah, I saw a little thing you put on Blue Sky yesterday about and could relate to it hard.
Yeah,
about that thing where, what was it you said, when you
on
wake
the morning
up
commute.
Yeah,
you're into London, and it's kind of like 8:45, and you're looking at your watch trying to work out how many hours it is till you can go to sleep again, because being asleep is the only thing that's not making you sad.
Yeah.
And and it's just clinical depression and the black dog.
Yes.
Who was it who called it the black dog?
Churchill.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, he did have a lot to be depressed about.
Yes.
But
yes. Blenheim Palace is a very small and pokey place to inherit.
Have you tried heating the place?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But today things are a couple of things are starting to look up, and sometimes all you actually need is like one or two positive things to happen.
Yeah.
And it kind of it cracks it, and then you sort of go, I'm feeling a bit better. So
I have recently, it's been very, very up and down. My problem is that problem is perhaps the wrong word. A coping strategy that I use is I fixate on something as, oh, well, obviously things are going to suck until that happens. And then once that happens, it'll be all right. And that is normally enough to get through the day or maybe the rest of the week. And this year was very, very, very hard for a lot of complicated reasons. Yeah. And I sort of was like, okay, well, I'll hang on until the clocks change, because then the evenings get lighter, and that's always good. So, and that way you're like, okay, well, I'm depressed, but I'm not going to try and do anything about it, because I've given myself a reason for the depression, which I know will resolve itself given time. All I have to do is get there. And then the clocks change, and you're like, oh, shit, that wasn't it. All right. What else might be the reason why let's fixate? I need to finish this piece of work. I really need to do that. So you knock and you do that, and then that's done. And you're like, I did it. That in fact was not the. I mean, it was.
That wasn't it.
The thing is, it's none of these things, and it's all of these things. It is, the overwhelming number of different reasons why any given day is not you out in the sunshine, relaxed and secure and not worrying about the future and having a good time and thinking of fun stuff to do. Yeah. Wow, there are a lot of reasons why the days are not like that at the moment. But yeah, and so I've sort of been slowly chipping away at all the little things. And but no, you do get to the point. The other thing that I thought of when I saw your post yesterday is the days when you wake up and you're like, no, I'm not done. I'm not prepared for consciousness yet. I need another 2 hours of oblivion, and you can't get back to sleep. And eventually you're like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yes.
Because I can't. I don't know. I don't know what morning people do. Like I've seen them. I've observed their habits. And they wake up at 5, and like by 6 a.m. they're doing things.
Yes,
like working or exercising. I
think they wake up at 5 and they eat a sort of healthy, freshly prepared breakfast from plants and things that they've grown in their own yard, and they've gone out and they've milked their goat, and then they've done their exercise. And then they've showered and got dressed, and then they post about doing all that on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
to make everybody else feel bad about themselves.
See, I don't feel bad about myself. I feel bad about those people.
Well, yeah.
Like, you're not
no way to live.
You're stop it. But no, even when there are days when I wake up at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know what to do about it because, I'm like, it's not like I have anything I have to do at 8 a.m. because I've had those jobs where your boss, you need to be in the office at 9. I'm like, why? Like,
Yes.
I'm paying you. You're like, all right, I can't really fault that argument, but we both know that you get more value for your money if I rock up at 10 and go home at 6.
Yes.
But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Sleep is nice. More sleep.
Sleep is good.
If they a mechanism where while you're asleep you don't get any older, that would be even better. Then you could just, you know what? I'm sleeping until April. This sucks. I'm gonna.
I'd be what, 30?
Yeah,
34. I'd be 34.
Kieran says, do I count as a morning person if I prefer to stay at work until 4 a.m.?
No,
you don't. But also
don't.
there is a wonderful thing that they do in Japan, which I think we should adopt everywhere, which is
it's not 4 a.m.
It's not 4 a.m. It's 2800. So if it's something like a nightclub that has its opening hours and it says that it's open from 2000 hours until 2600 hours, what that means is it stays open until
2 o'clock in
the morning.
Yeah.
Because they absolutely acknowledge that two people might be awake at the same point in time, but the person who is on their way home at 5 a.m. and the person who is on their way out at 5 a.m. are not the same person.
Yes.
And did you ever read China Meyerville wrote this wonderful book called The City and the City?
Yes.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Oh, so good.
And I used to spend a lot of weekend nights out in central London and end up getting a bus home after sunrise.
Yes.
And you would definitely see the people getting on the bus going the other way. They were not in the same place as you, even though they were, because they were on their way into town at 5 a.m. on a Sunday and you were on your way home at 5 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yes.
And yeah, that's no, staying up late does not make you a morning, but you can't know. You can't get there the long way round.
In 1995, I was still living in Hastings, but I was doing my stand-up open spots and all this sort of thing. And so I would make my way up to London because that's where the comedy clubs were. And the last train from Charing Cross back to Hastings left at 10:30 in the evening. And there wasn't another one until 7 o'clock in the morning. And so there were many times when I would go up on a weeknight, do a gig, and then have to go to somewhere like Leisure Lounge or Strawberry Fields or whatever, just to fill the time until I could go to Charing Cross and get on a train and then go back to Hastings and theoretically go to work. Although that didn't always happen.
Yes, I had the occasional night like that when I was living in Southampton and you'd come to London to go to a concert or something.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, yeah, I guess I've missed the last train.
Yeah.
And they say that New York is the city that never sleeps. And I used to think that London is the city that can't sleep.
Yes.
Like Leicester Square,
too noisy.
Leicester Square at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Nothing is actually open, but nobody knows that. And it's the sort of nightlife equivalent of standing in front of the refrigerator going, because you can't work out what you're doing there or what's going to make it better. So
yes.
But anyway, yes. So other than wanting to be asleep, what have we been doing with our week? Well, I've nerd sniped myself horribly today because
I got that impression.
I'm writing a talk, as I am prone to do from time to time, about algorithms, and there's some lovely visualizations that I want to include with it. And I've been looking around, and I've discovered that there is a this is, I think, almost a sort of a metaphor, an indictment, perhaps, of the state of software development. I found several projects online which are beautiful web animation visualizations of sorting algorithms, and they've got sound effects plugging into web oscillators, and they're written in Svelte and all this kind of stuff. But they've screwed up the actual sorting algorithms. So it's somebody has implemented bubble sort in 20 lines of TypeScript and bollocksed it up so it doesn't work properly. and then made a lovely animation that allows you, if you know what bubble sort is supposed to do, you watch it and go, that's not right.
That's not, yes.
No. You've missed a really important piece of
How
the
do you
implementation.
mess up bubble sort?
So bubble sort has a one of the sort of redeeming factors of bubble sort is that if the list is already sorted, it will sort it in linear time.
Yes.
Because all it does is start at the beginning, go to the end, and if it didn't swap anything, you're done. It's all in order.
Yeah.
And so this particular implementation, it sorts the list properly, but if you give it a sorted list, it bubble sorts it the long way round, and it does the whole like 0 to 10, 0 to 9, 0 to 8, 0 to 7, 0 to 6, 0 to 5, doing a bubble pass every time.
Yeah,
and you're like, it
was already sorted.
Yeah. And so I found, and my preferred, like, of the libraries I found, because I don't want to build my own, because it's much quicker to find one that already works and then accidentally end up yak shaving for a day. There's one, they're all called The Sound of Sorting, because everyone goes, oh, what's a good name? I know, The Sound of Sorting, that's nice. So they've all got the same name for coincidental reasons. But the one I really like is written in C++ using WX widgets and SDL for cross-platform audio and interactivity. And, it's a desktop application, and there's a binary of it in C for Windows that works, and it works great, and it does exactly what I need. And I need to tweak it just a little bit, because I need to add what I want to demonstrate is I need the same random list multiple times, so I can take the same random list and sort it using different algorithms and visualize them. And this one's got, sort it. It's already in order. It's backwards. It's a mountain with the biggest one in the middle. It's a valley with the smallest one in the middle, or it's shuffle. But shuffle gives you a different shuffle every time, because the shuffle's not deterministic, which it shouldn't be, because it's random.
Shuffle.
And so I probably need to add like 2 lines of C code to this thing to get it to do exactly what I want. Except I can't build it, because the binary was built into 2013. And so I have been happily chipping away and going, oh, it needs that. All right, can I compile? Oh, it needs one of those. Oh, it needs a tool chain. Oh, yeah. And it's that whole thing, Linux software is like, oh, it's easy. You do /configure and then you do make. And then they went, oh, yeah, now we've got auto make and auto conf. And I'm like, I don't know what those things are, because this is not my wheelhouse. So I got as far as you download the msys runtime, you get the shell open, then you use the shell, which has a package manager called Pacman, which I love, and that's the best name ever for a package manager. And why aren't they all called that? So your Pacman install
Arch Linux.
Yes, I don't know where it's from, but I know it's on. So yeah, the whole msys is like you can do Unixy things on Windows, but it's not WSL. Because the other thing I discovered, which was quite astonishing, is I cloned this project in WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux. And I built it and I ran it, and it ran, it ran in X Windows. So it brought up a like Linux type buttons and dialogues and widgets and everything.
So I'm gonna sort of, I'm pretty sure that was Windows 11 23H1 or H2. They added X Windows support to WSL2. So
I'm on Windows 10, but I do have
you're on
WSL2.
Windows 10.
Yeah.
Right. But yes, I think they backported it once it was in the Windows 11 thing.
And that was like is this happening? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And it works, and you look at it, it's a little bit janky. That's the problem, is the Linux build of it. Like when you close it, it doesn't actually close, just the window dies, but it's still on the screen, and you sort of have to poke it with a stick to get it to go away.
Yeah.
And
there's a little bit of latency in there as well. Because I ran Z, the text editor.
Yeah.
Before there was a Windows build of that, I ran that in WSL2. And considering the whole point of Z is that it's written in Rust, so it's super fast, so it's an amazingly smooth typing experience. putting it through the X window system into WSL2 and then back out again through Windows windowing system. It was not a comfortable typing experience. I mean, it's an astonishing achievement that you can do it at all.
Yeah.
And there are absolutely apps where that's not an issue. But yeah, it's not for low latency stuff.
It is. Yes.
So this is a weird thing that I've been noticing lately, because the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm specifically, has gone, oh, you watch videos about Zig, do you?
Yes.
I'll start throwing more of those at you. And weirdly, quite a few of them are about not using Zig as a programming language, but using it as a build system for other programming languages. So there is a cargo-zig build. The thing is, so the way Zig build works, the build file is written in Zig. So it's sort of like Cake, or the things where you orchestrate your build using the language. So it's like that, but it's basically kind of going, load this and compile this and then add this module to the executable, and then but it's very, very sort of easy to reason about and stuff. And so there is a cargo-zig build which you can use to use the zig build.zig file to build Rust, but there's also quite a lot of people using it to replace things like autoconf and automake for C. And it works really well for that as well. And I believe there's Go programmers are using it to do Go builds like and stuff. And it's just it's a great way to kind of get your language in kind of under the radar, and then have people go, well, hang on, I'm quite enjoying writing these build files in this language. Maybe we should actually try and build something in it. I don't know.
I am simultaneously, that's very cool, but my cynical senior developer is going, that will be really cool for a little while, and then it will stop being cool because everyone gets bored of it. And then in 2 years' time, some poor sod is going to have to try, and they'll be like, I just need to install this pack. It's to be situations like that are somebody will use it at their work to build an important piece of software that gets put into production. Everything's fine. That person leaves. The software doesn't need to get touched for 2 years. And then they need to add a cookie banner to it because of a change in the law or something.
Yes.
And
or
somebody
you come along because you're writing a talk.
Something like that, yes. And somebody will be like, how do I, what? It's in Zig? What do you mean it's in Zig, but it's not in Zig? Why do I need to install Zig if it's not in Zig? It's built in Zig.
Yes. But Zig, this is another thing that I really like about it, it's tiny. it's really, really, very, very small. So the cargo Zig build, you actually install using cargo with Rust, and it just brings Zig along with it, rather than sort of go, oh, you have to have Zig installed. It's much easier for them to just bundle. It's like,
that's fine.
It's a few megabytes, this thing.
So there's a SAS compiler for ASP.NET, which just bundles Dart.exe.
Yes.
And it bundles Dart for EXE and Dart for macOS and Dart for Linux, and it just bundles them all and puts them all in. So it can use because it's small and it's light. And otherwise, if you want to do anything with SAS on .NET, you also need to install Node.js.
Yeah.
And I really like that idea of no, we don't expect you to have Dart on your system. We don't ask you to install Dart. We don't care whether you've got Dart or not. We got our own Dart, and we're just going to run our own Dart. And the way I discovered that is one day after a day of troubleshooting and debugging and editing and making web pages, I checked the task manager in Windows, and I was running 17 instances of Dart.exe. And I didn't know where that came from.
Because it was building your CSS.
And so hot reload and .NET wasn't always killing it cleanly. And if something went wrong, it would orphan one process and just spin up another one to build the CSS.
Yes.
I didn't notice any problem until I was like, why am I running 17 copies of Dart? And I used the sysinternals process explorer. And there I was like, oh, that's quite neat, actually. Because, it means that they didn't need to, the SAS compiler is the native SAS compiler that is written in Dart. So they're not backporting it and, cross-converting it across to .NET or anything. So it's actually quite a neat idea. Oh, look, we've got bots.
Twitch spam. Best
Twitch
viewers
spam,
on stream.
Yeah.
Oh, remove the space. No, I will not remove the space. But no, and I think this kind of simplicity is why the TypeScript team, well, one of the reasons why the TypeScript team have picked Go as their target, their sort of language of choice to rewrite the compiler. Because at the moment, if you want to compile TypeScript to JavaScript, you have to install Node. And Node is not small. Node is like 120 megabytes or something, plus all the NPM packages and everything else. At a rough guess, I would say that the TypeScript compiler, if it's written in Go and an optimized build, would come in at less than 10 megabytes.
Yeah.
And that no other dependencies at all. So if you're one of those people who you like TypeScript, but you don't need a build system, you've got a .ts file, you want a .js file that you can include in your website, and you want that to be part of your Visual Studio build or whatever, then it'll be able to handle. Because I am very, very happy if I have a computer that does not have Node.js installed on it.
Yes.
It makes me smile.
Yes, 100 times yes. I have actually done entire workshops before where I'm like, we're going to do all this without installing Node.js. And people are like, what? You can make websites without Node.js? I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah, you can.
Allow me to enlighten you.
Yes.
But that's fun. So I honestly, I got as far as I've installed SDL, or I've compiled SDL on Windows from source, and that works. And now it's saying that it can't find a 32-bit Windows DLL using 3D graphics that apparently WX Widgets doesn't use, but it's still in the... So it's like you run the .configure, and that spits out a make file, and then you have to go and edit the make file to remove the things that don't matter anymore.
Wow.
But it's that thing. It's 13-year-old software. So, if I wanted to replicate it, what I should do is find a 13-year-old version of Windows and install 13-year-old MSys and 13-year-old Git and 13-year-old GCC, because that's what would have been used to build the binary that I know works.
Yeah. Find an ISO for 32-bit Windows 7.
Yeah. But and then it's like, well, I could alternatively try and pull all of the, basically move the source code into a different project, because Visual Studio has CMake, which is cross-platform project system for C and C++, which works pretty nicely. So the alternative is, well, I could just try and pull all of the .h and the .cpp files into a new project and build that and see if that works. And it's the whole thing of, I absolutely believe that given enough time, any one of these would be successful. It's how do you know which one to try next, and how long do you prevail with it before you decide that this is not, in fact, the right solution, and you give up. So
fake it in After Effects.
Yeah, actually, that maybe. I mean, After Effects has a full ActionScript runtime, so I could... Right, no.
I love that Flash script effectively lives on in After Effects.
It's great.
The best bit of Flash has outlived the rest of it.
Well, it's an ECMAScript compliant engine, so the language is exactly the same as JavaScript. It's just not called that.
It's technically ECMAScript 4, isn't it?
I don't know.
Okay, so this was what happened back in the day. Macromedia were on the TC39 committee, and there was all this work went into ECMAScript 4, and Macromedia were busy implementing it in Flash, and then ECMA went, actually, no, we've changed our minds, and scrapped it, and then ECMAScript 5 started, and so ECMAScript 4 became ActionScript. That's why there's no ECMAScript 4.
It is one of those weird little quirks of history, just in case any of the folks listening are not familiar with it. JavaScript was... So first it was LiveScript. Actually, first it was like a variant of Scheme and Smalltalk, wasn't it?
Yes.
Brendan Ike, working at wherever back in the day, Netscape, they said we need to put a scripting language in the browser, and the legend is he built it in 10 days. And what actually happened is it took 10 days to get a working prototype of a dynamically typed language with prototyped inheritance running inside a browser, and connecting Java applets together.
Yes.
And then they became LiveScript. And then there was this one I never understood, because even when you understand how it happened, it's still so stupid you can't believe anybody did it. But they renamed LiveScript to JavaScript because Java was popular.
Yes.
And it's like renaming cheeseburgers Beyonce because Beyonce is popular. I don't get it, but this is why I don't work in marketing.
They were directly competing with Java,
but
Java
they weren't
was at the time. But they were, because at the time Java applets were the only way to do that kind of client-side interactivity. I still remember my first exposure to Java ever when I was working at this little company down in Hastings was this guy going, oh, look what I've done. And he'd basically done mouse over buttons, but with Java and doing color maths, so that he was actually just changing the saturation of stuff. And you sort of think, the world has moved on in all sorts of ways, but it's actually quite recently with CSS maths and selectors and JavaScript that we've been able to reproduce that exact thing, where you just increase the saturation or the brightness or whatever, the luminance, by 10% every time they mouse over something, and it doesn't matter what color it is, it'll just get lighter.
So but anyway, and then so they mentioned this would be good if it was like an open standard, so it wasn't owned by anybody. And for some bizarre reason, the European Computer Manufacturers Association decided that they would be the standards body that endorsed it, and so it became ECMAScript. Which is not, you can't run ECMAScript. ECMAScript is a specification that then gets implemented in different engines. And ECMAScript version 4 ended up baked into Adobe After Effects, and I think it's in Premiere and things as well, which is kind of nice, because the other talk that I'm going to be doing in Oslo is about the tech behind the line breakers. And my happy place is .NET. If I can write stuff in C#, I will. But quite often when you're trying to do automation of packages which do something well, you end up going with whatever scripting engine they offer, because why would you fight it? And so I have ActionScript code for making videos. I've got Visual Basic for applications macros that are used in PowerPoint. I've got Arduino C. I've got Ruby. I've got all these different programming languages, all of which somehow chip into the line breakers, the videos and the performance and the website and all that kind of stuff. So that's a kind of an interesting, I think, perspective on, what programming language is best. Well, probably the one that's already built into the application where your stuff is. And, if that's ActionScript, then suck it up, learn ActionScript.
Yes.
So
it's basically like JavaScript anyway. So
it is JavaScript. It's just you don't have a DOM. You need a whole different object model for it.
Well, yes.
So,
I can't remember if it's DaVinci Resolve. Oh, no, there we go. So DaVinci uses Lua as its scripting language. There's a 3D package that used Python, and I can't remember which one it was.
Blender?
That was quite good. Might have been, yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
But yes, Python was actually used as just kind of a de facto scripting language for a few things, I think.
I mean, one of the weirdest ones that I've come across is when my first job was doing help desk for a civil engineering company, and there were people there who knew how to program in Lisp, because Lisp was AutoCAD's macro language and still is, AutoLisp. And, you know, at the time I was 16, 17 years old and was going to go to university and study computer science. And, you know, Lisp was this amazing functional language that only people with beards used in San Francisco. And suddenly, you know, there's these blokes from Bristol who designed bridges for a living who could write Lisp. And I'm like, how? And yeah, I find it quite strange because, you know, back in the early 90s, the Lisp was the kind of standard. If you needed to put a programming language in your application, AutoCAD had Lisp, Emacs had Lisp.
Yep.
And yeah.
And
then the world went, nah, not that.
So they've changed it, but they changed it quite recently. The Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programs, which is the textbook from the older MIT 601 computer science course, and that was they created Scheme to teach that course, and Scheme is a slightly simplified version of Lisp. There's some stuff that it doesn't do, but there's a lot of stuff that it does do. And over the course of this semester or year or whatever it was, you built Scheme. Because the thing with Scheme and Lisps generally is they are easier to implement than almost any other programming language, because the data format is the same as the language format. The program is just a bunch of linked lists, so it's incredibly easy to parse and reason about.
I built a Scheme interpreter in Java for one of my final year assignments as an undergraduate.
There you go.
And came out of it very much disinclined to work with Scheme or Java again.
I mean, Scheme, I can understand why you wouldn't want to write anything big in Scheme, because you have to keep that constant running count of how many parentheses open you are, so that when you get, this is where it needs that Rockstar feature.
It does.
Is it ooh?
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, and it just closes any current indentation. You should create oolisp. Oolisp with that feature.
Oh look, you got spam on your Twitch stream now.
I've got spam on my Twitch.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't even know if I can.
The internet should be expensive. I'm not saying that you know, I'm against the freedom of information, but if bots had to pay $5 a month to get an internet connection and do it with a dial-up modem, there wouldn't be so many bots.
Where is my Twitch channel?
I don't know.
There we go. There's my channel, and there's me. And you can. Oh, how do you?
You click the username, and there's a button on there to ban them.
Oh,
hello, everybody who is currently listening to this podcast while they're walking the dog. We are banning bots that you can't see, but they're here, and we want them gone. Boom.
There we go. Yay. Cool.
So I noticed that you put a ticket on our little board of things to talk about, saying, could this be why MS are suddenly sending 2FA messages with WhatsApp?
Yes. So yesterday, Alvin Ashcraft came back after 10 days off, and so there was an enormous, great, big, long morning.
The morning dew, was that him?
Yeah, he was he's morning dew. Chris
Alcock was the morning brew.
Morning brew, but he obviously has better things to do with his time.
I
hope that's the situation. I hope he's okay. But yes, and there was a thing in there. Microsoft have a kind of Azure Twilio, effectively offering Azure communication services. And there was this big announcement. Yay, you can send WhatsApp messages from Azure communication services. We've added support for the WhatsApp API. And so, then that I'm guessing that's why Microsoft two-factor authentication. Is that you or me?
Oh, I think that's a real person.
A real person.
Hello, Brickspace9.
Hello, Brickspace. He's on yours.
They haven't asked us to buy anything or told us where we can get cheap viewers, so they're probably a real person.
Give them time. I hope that's not the case, Brickspace9. I hope you are a real person. And hello and welcome and thank you for joining.
So Azure Communication Services gives you WhatsApp now. So
yes,
I got to say, I find it very weird when quite often now when I check into hotels, like you give them your phone number to check in, and then you get a business WhatsApp from them going, "How are you finding everything?" And the temptation to reply with, "Are you a real person? Is this? Am I talking to a human being right now?"
Yes.
The other thing I love about hotels particularly is when you check into a hotel and you get on your Wi-Fi, and clearly they're like, when they connect to the Wi-Fi, what page should we take them to? Like, how about the booking room? It's like, I've already got a hotel room. The last thing I am going to do right now is book another room in the hotel I'm currently staying in.
Yes.
I just got here,
Yeah.
So
so I noticed another thing last couple of days. My iPhone popped up a message saying, "Do you want notifications incorporated into messages?" And so now I have a notification from Apple that they shipped my HomePod, which is sitting in my iMessage. But it's not a message, it's a notification. It's got a completely different icon by it, and it appeared in there in a different way. But that made me think, the way we send notifications to mobile devices in particular, it's all very custom. Apple has their way of doing it, and you kind of have to go through the Apple notification hub thing. And I don't know how Android does it, but I think it's something to do with Firebase. And then there's sort of like Azure does a thing where you can send a notification and it takes care of whether it's talking to Apple notifications or Firebase or whatever. And then they did this like yesterday or the day before, and I'm kind of like, why did we reinvent everything for notifications when we already had media messages? Because you could send pictures in messages before the iPhone came along. You could send sort of quite complicated stuff, or you can just send more than one message with like an ID or something. But no, we had to go and reinvent the entire system to get notifications to pop up on your phone. You could just have added a flag to a text message to say, this is not a text message, it's a notification, and use the same infrastructure. And then that would have been a lot cheaper and easier for everybody.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah. 07 Rain is saying that was controlled by the carrier.
Because I mean, one of the big headaches with messaging was always SMS nominally cost money. And also, I do something about an in-app notification that that it came from that app that you installed. And so there's a certain kind of legitimacy to it. If I get a message pop up from the Amazon app on my phone saying there's a problem with your order, I deal with it. If I get an SMS saying there's a problem with my Amazon order, I delete it because it's almost certainly spam.
That is true.
And I think, given a choice between making SMS or iMessage or Android message cross-platform and reliable and end-to-end authenticated, or just reinventing the wheel. They went, inventing wheels is fun. Let's do that. We like inventing wheels.
Yes.
So
yes, that is true. We engineers, we enjoy the wheel invention.
Oh, there's nothing as satisfying as inventing a really good wheel.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have to say, the Apple HomePod. Oh no, so this was yesterday because the HomePod arrived yesterday. That is an astonishing technical achievement.
What is it?
It's basically like an Echo thing, but it's Apple's version of it, and you can talk to it and everything. But you can also just set it as the speaker for your iPhone or your iPad. You can connect your Apple TV to it and use it as a sound bar.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's roughly the size of a grapefruit, and it's just it's a round, sort of mostly spherical with a flat bottom and a weird little light thing on top. And the sound that comes out of it is, I mean, if you paid hundreds of pounds for a sort of proper Sonos system or something, it would be better. But for 99 quid and for something that fits sort of in space that would be taken up by a coffee cup, the sound of it is really, really, really good. Better than the LG X Boom Bluetooth speaker than I was using before, and that thing is like 3 times the size and has woofers on either end.
Yeah,
and this thing's chucking out better audio with bigger bass than that. And so, yeah, I'm quite impressed. There's some
and
solid.
you can get a blue one. I like blue things.
You can get a blue one. You can get a yellow, orange. I think there's a pink one. I got a black one because I'm boring.
So Apple have also been in the news this week because the European Union is fining them what, $700 million?
So Apple €500 million.
Yep.
Euros, and Meta 200 million. But also this came with a and we'll do it again in 3 months if you don't fix it. It's kind of like, yeah, don't think this is the end. This isn't just slapped wrists and then carry on with Apple. It's the whole App Store thing. And I think most specifically, it's the fact that apps aren't supposed to say, yeah, so this will cost you £1.30 if you buy it in app, or you can go to the website and buy it for £1.
Yeah.
And
I mean, so something which consistently drives me nuts is that the Kindle app on iPhone is not allowed to buy books.
Nope.
And so if you want to buy a book and it's not only that, I think the Amazon app on iPhone, the only way to buy a book is you have to open the Amazon website in a browser on your phone. Yeah. Because the website is allowed to sell you an ebook. But the Amazon app is not, because Apple are like, no, we have Apple books. You will buy Apple books and you will read them on your Apple device with your Apple eyes, and you will absorb Apple knowledge.
Yes.
And you're like, I don't want Apple knowledge. I want something else. So,
yeah.
And that's always the point that makes me go, this is so dumb that we invented this astonishingly, slick integrated technology. I'm literally, on top of a hill in the middle of nowhere. And I'm thinking, I should get that book that I was just being told about. And oh no, I can't just click the button and buy it now. Not for any technical reason whatsoever, but because somebody's like, no, we want a third.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you can't have a third. And they're like, well, then you can't have a book. And you're like,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Apple are in trouble for that. And Meta are in trouble because the EU said, can you stop doing terrible things with people's personal data? And I love this. Meta's legal defense against that was essentially, but that's our business model.
Yeah.
Doing terrible things with people's data is literally why we exist. It's the only way we make money. And so, and now you've got sort of Zuckerberg, with his new alt-right white rapper personality and everything else that he's got going on, talking about whether Meta will be able to continue to operate in Europe. And I'm pretty sure most of Europe going, oh yes, please do go on. I can't stop voluntarily, but if you just take it away, I'll be so much happier.
It would be like when they banned smoking in pubs.
Yes, it'll be like Earth Day.
Yeah.
Where they turn the lights off and you can go outside and see stars.
We've decided that this is bad for humans and therefore it's not allowed anymore. And the humans all go, actually, this is great. Oh,
yeah.
Wow, I had no idea. So, yeah.
So, yes, well done, the EU. I wish I was still a part of you.
Because we're not in Europe, are we?
And
we're somewhere else.
No, we're not. We're in Europe. We're just not in Europe.
Briefly, while we're on the subject of books, I stumbled across the other day. I was chatting with somebody at the pub quiz, and we were talking about books, and realized that neither of us had ever read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And so I thought, I wonder if that. And so I went on Audible, and it's on Audible, and it's free because it's out of copyright.
Desperately racist.
I think it is a couple of chapters in. It is a very authentic book about very racist people. which and I'm not going to get into the discussion, but there are certain words that Mark Twain never uses in prose, but he does use when he's quoting characters.
Yes.
Which I think is a sort of the hallmark of accurately observing the style and nuance of the context he's writing about. Yes. But the free version on Audible is read by Nick Offerman from Parks and Recreation, Ron Swanson. Yes. And he does a wonderful job on it. And I know we've talked before about how audiobooks are all down to who's doing the voices and stuff. Yeah. And he does it fantastically well.
Oh, I'm going to check that out. But no, you will probably have missed this by dint of being both young and not living in this country for the first few years of your life.
Are you going to talk about television sets again? I told you, we got one of those eventually.
No, but I am going to talk about a TV show, a children's TV show called The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, based on that Mark Twain book.
Yeah.
Where, this was 4:30 in the afternoon, one day a week, and it was after school television, and children were watching it. And oh my God, yes, they used that word over and over. And he would introduce people. He would introduce himself to people with, "Hi, I'm Huck, and this is my Jim."
Wow.
And people wonder why my generation is so true in so many different ways, and so kind of like, I think it's one of the reasons we struggle with the concept of like micro discrimination, microaggressions, and so forth, because when we were kids, they were macro. I mean, there was no political correctness. There was no any of this sort of stuff.
There was no passive aggressive. There was just aggressive aggressive.
Yes, aggressive aggressive.
Yeah.
It's like the Disney Song of the South movie, which is the one Disney movie that you can no longer acquire anywhere.
Yeah.
And they've even torn down Splash Mountain. So in the Disney World Magic Kingdom, Splash Mountain, up until a couple of years ago, the theme was all Brer Rabbit from Song of the South, and now they've gutted it, and it's opening. I think it might have opened last year, or it's opening this year, and it's now the Princess and the Frog and the Bayou and all that sort of thing. It's like the last traces of that horribly racist thing with a tar baby and everything else.
So the reason why we had this conversation in the first place is apparently a book has recently been published, which is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer told from Jim's perspective.
Ooh.
And the sort of consensus was, well, you probably shouldn't read that one until you've read the famous one, so you know what it is that is being kind of reevaluated. When I'm finished with this one, I plan to check that one out.
That sounds like a much better kind of meta fiction than 50 Shades of Grey from Grey's perspective.
Yes,
which I believe was an actual book that actually happened.
Or didn't. I mean, we could decide it didn't, and
we could decide it didn't.
That's
You mean like deciding that recipe book that someone posted on?
No,
we're not talking about that.
No,
let's not talk about that. Actually, because we rambled like champions for the first bit of this. So, but I want to get this off my chest. I need to get this off my chest. I hate application insights.
Then don't use it
so much. I don't get a choice.
Oh,
for some reason, I think mainly because. I was an Azure MVP, and so a lot of the time people hire me because they go, "Oh, he knows Azure." And people inside Azure, because App Insights exists, they default to using it, and it's difficult to explain to them why, like, Prometheus is better for metrics, or anything else is better for logs, or Honeycomb or Jaeger are better for traces. App Insights has existed for almost it's over 10 years now, and it's gone through various. I mean, I don't think there's anybody working on it now who was working on it when it started.
Yeah.
And 10, 12 years ago, there were no standards for metrics or logs, or there was no such thing as distributed tracing. There probably was, but anyway, nobody was really using it. Zipkin might have existed, I guess.
It existed, but there were no standards.
There were no standards for it. And so Microsoft just invented everything for application insights. And the way that they chose to do everything is like, if they'd built it today with the explicit intent of making it completely incompatible with all the existing standards or any of the other storage media or any of the visualization tools or anything else, they could not have done a better job. So, phone not on silent. So yeah, it's kind of, the metrics won't do histograms, and histograms are incredibly useful. The trace, I don't even know what's going on with the traces. The logs go into a table called traces. So the traces have to go into 2 separate tables called requests and operations, I think. So then try getting those to join together into one table to view in any other tracing tool except the Azure portal. The tracing UI in the Azure portal is horrible. And yeah, it's just everything about it drives me nuts. And I want, Microsoft kind of like, oh, we made this change, we made that change, but they don't really make that many changes to it. And I just wish they would just go, you know what, we're going to provide you an off-ramp onto standardized.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming.
Tools for stuff.
The extent to which Aspire has embraced OTel as a sort of, this is how you see what your distributed systems are doing. Is a sort of, I think it's, I was chatting to some folks about this at the London.net meetup the other night. I think, and I have no inside perspective on this, I think one of the big problems that has always plagued Microsoft is whenever they see a problem/opportunity, half a dozen different people think, if I can make that happen, I'll become a deputy vice president of something.
Yes.
And so every single opportunity that comes up, half a dozen different people all embrace they all, find a completely different approach to it. We are talking about package management. And we were talking about the days when there were half a dozen different open source projects that aimed to, this is pre-NuGet, this is before NuGet existed, because Sebastian Lambler had a thing called OpenWrap, which was, a thing. There was a project called Horn, which was doing the same thing. There were a couple of other.
NuGet was called Nugget.
And I really get the impression, because every single one of those projects had somebody at Microsoft talking to them enthusiastically about, we would love to make this our solution, we'd love to support it, we'd love to, extend it, whatever. And then what invariably seems to happen is that it all goes quiet for 6 months, and then they get an email or something saying, yeah, no, sorry, bye. We're not going to support your project. Actually, we've got something completely different which renders your project obsolete. Go and have a nice life. But then you think, you've got a company like Microsoft, which I'm sure is not the only company where this happens. You got half a dozen different people going, if I can be the one who solves, distributed tracing for Azure, then I'm going to get a big fat promotion, and they're going to give me some more people for my team. And so you get half a dozen different people who, and it's not even necessarily that I think they believe their solution is the right one. It's just their solution is the one they happen to be working with, and if it's the one that gets bought in, then they do very well out of it. I'm absolutely,
the silos in Microsoft are very real. The Office, the Windows, the div.
And even Azure and .NET, people from the outside are like, they probably think there's like one room where there are 8 people who do .NET and Azure. It's like, no. Let me show you the ring binder where they keep the org charts. And as Marie says, 6 teams all trying to implement their promotion in parallel, but there's only one promotion. So I suspect.
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, I suspect the reason why they have not thrown App Insights out and replaced it is that somebody did very well out of getting App Insights in there in the first place, and now they have to untangle the politics.
Well, yes.
And the classic Microsoft, oh, but we have enterprise customers who are invested in it, so now it has to be supported forever.
Like COBOL.
So, like COBOL.
Yes. Did you ever read Joel Spolsky's In Defense of Not Invented Here syndrome? Where he mentions that the Excel team inside Microsoft have their own, or had certainly 25 years ago, their own C compiler. They did not use Microsoft C to build Excel. They made their own C compiler and they used that.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft Visual C++ had too many dependencies.
Yeah. My two favorite anecdotes about the not invented here thing. One is the fact that the Excel team used their own C compiler. They didn't use C. The other one is that the people who maintained Microsoft Project used Excel to plan their releases. They did not use Microsoft Project to manage their project. They used spreadsheets to do it.
Yes.
Which kind of tells you everything you need to know about Microsoft Project, really. But
it does. So Dave Gouge in the chat is asking, what would you recommend as an App Insights replacement, which is a complicated. So I'm going to, for tracing, if you're okay with a hosted solution, and you don't need it to be like on-prem or inside your VPN or whatever, then Honeycomb is definitely the first thing you should look at. Honeycomb will now handle logs and metrics as well. It will also generate metrics from traces, so you don't need to duplicate the stuff you're sending in. And it does tail sampling on your traces. So one of the issues with distributed tracing and the way it works on open telemetry is you have to do, you want to avoid storing all the traces because that's a lot of data. And so you do this thing called sampling. And the way you do sampling in process is you say, if the ID starts with this letter, and then you get like 1 in 16 of your traces, and it's that sort of thing. But that means that the traces that you are actually interested in, the ones with particularly long run times or errors attached to them or whatever, might just get dumped by that upfront tracing. It's already made the decision that it's not going to record it. And so tail sampling, you actually have logic, you write everything, you send everything, and then a process somewhere, I think Honeycomb called it a refinery, and it caches the spans that make up a trace until it thinks it's got all of them, and you kind of set a time after the last one was received of like 10-15 minutes or something, and then it will run checks on it, and you can say if any of the spans have an error status, or if any of the spans, or if the overall thing is more than like double what it usually is, then you should record that. And so that's something that Honeycomb does built in. There's no easy way of doing that outside of Honeycomb that I'm aware of at the moment. For metrics, Prometheus or InfluxDB. Influx is very good, but Prometheus for metrics it's like the standard, and so you can use it with all the visualization tools and Grafana and everything. And for logging, I don't know, really. Probably Seek, Serilog, sort of spun out Seek as their own log storage thing. The other thing you can do is Grafana themselves now have Tempo, Loki, and something beginning with M, Mimir. So yes, 2 of those obviously from Norse mythology, and the other one from Latin. Anyway. And those will run, you can run those internally, you can run them on containers on like your Kubernetes cluster or whatever, and you can point them at Azure Blob Storage or any kind of block storage, basically. So S3, whatever Google's cloud platform has.
I mean, is it fair to say that it's not the the concept of an App Insights replacement, what OpenTelemetry really does is it decouples the process of instrumenting your code, the process of sending the output of that instrumentation, and then the process of analyzing and reporting on it.
Yes. Yeah.
So that once you've instrumented your code to send OpenTelemetry spans and traces and metrics and things, it's then relatively easy. I say, it's easier than switching from App Insights to something else, because the code doesn't change. What you do is configure it to send the outputs to something different.
Yeah.
And then there are a whole raft of tools and platforms and services out there which will accept OpenTelemetry data and do things with it.
Yes. Yeah.
But
the other big advantage, because OpenTelemetry, it's built into so many things now. It's like if you're using Spring on Java or Spring Boot on Java, it's built into Spring Boot now. And because OpenTelemetry has said traces look like this, metrics look like this, and logs look like this, if you're in a sort of polyglot multi-platform environment where you're using Node and Java and Go and Python and .NET, they're sending the same structured data. And so if you need to then query across metrics that came from disparate systems or logs that came from disparate systems, they have the same format, and you can make, it's like OpenTelemetry metrics. You have histograms, you have counters, up down counters, and gauges, and that's it. So you can't just
Aspire uses OpenTelemetry.
So Aspire uses OpenTelemetry, and the Aspire dashboard actually has its own in-memory store and it stores the spans almost exactly as they come in off protobuf. But yes, certainly, if I was Greenfield and starting out with a new system and everything else sort of fell into place, and I wasn't worried about PCI DSS or anything. Not that you should be putting PCI DSS data into your logs anyway, but sometimes it slips in. Then I would go Honeycomb. I would trial Honeycomb for a month, and lean on Honeycomb to help you. Their dev advocates are incredible, and they will help you sort of work out where's this gone and why can't I find this anymore, and all that sort of stuff. It is an incredibly good product. And it scales. It's very cheap to start. Even you can probably run it for free to start.
There is a free tier on Honeycomb,
and it's quite generous.
Yeah.
And then it scales up to Martin, who works there. Told me the other day that somebody sent them 500 gigabyte trace. I'm just scrolling back up my Signal chat with him. Oh no, hang on, here we go. Last week somebody sent us one humongous trace containing 3.3 billion spans streamed to Honeycomb over the course of 6 days. It contains 12.75 terabytes of uncompressed data. That's one trace. Somebody mucked up they're just kind of like they started an activity when the software booted and they just kept it going. But Honeycomb can deal with that, so it can actually cope with billions of spans. They have people sending them like billions of spans.
They should be sponsoring us to say all this, right? I mean, it's all true.
Yeah,
none of this is scripted, but yeah. Hey, Honeycomb.
But yes, I'm going to their London. They're having a Honeycon or so. I don't think it's actually called Honeycon, which I think is a missed opportunity. But yes, they're having a day in London, and I signed up, got my ticket. So yes,
cool. Quick roundup of who's going to be where and when. So I'm off to Bristol tomorrow, where I'm going to be at DDD Southwest on Saturday, talking about how to be a rockstar programmer, and probably doing some podcasting and all those kinds of things. And then next week I'm not going anywhere.
And neither am I now, because I could not. The thought of going to Australia on top of the crippling week-long depressive episode, I just couldn't. I just could not face the idea of a 27-hour flight, 5 days in Melbourne, and a 28-hour flight back. And so I yanked myself from that. But the week after that, we're both speaking at DevOps UK in London.
We are.
And doing the party.
So we actually, before DevOps UK, we're doing, so London.net has a meetup, which is at Redis in London Bridge on Tuesday, the 6th of May. Guy Royce is going to be talking about how to find your meme twin using vector databases. And Yulia Samoilova is talking about, and I'm going to look this up because I only just put the details on meetup and I can't remember what she's talking about. So yeah, Guy's been there before, has done a bunch of talk. Basically, every time Guy Royce is in London, we get him along and do a meetup with him. And yes, and Yulia is talking about observability, logs, metrics, and traces. How about that?
There you go.
And that's free, and it's on meetup.com. So come along to that and learn all about metrics and logs and observability and meme twins and vector databases. And then we're at DevOps UK, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
I will not be there on that Tuesday because I am going to see Thunderbolts.
Oh, very exciting.
Well, it's the only Marvel movie that I'm actually kind of remotely interested in because it's the silly characters.
I do have to say, not to divert into politics this far into the podcast, but an awful lot of the kind of hallmark adventure action thriller superhero type stuff of the last 30 years is basically ringing incredibly hollow at the moment because we know they're only saving America so it can go and fuck itself up. And it's like, you could just go home. You don't need to be in danger. You don't know what you're, just chill, relax, go and eat a snack and wait and see what happens.
Yes. But no. And then the week after that, I have
NDC Oslo.
But we've got a week in between, haven't we?
Yes, you do. Yeah. I don't. I have to go to GCon in Krakow.
That's right.
Then I'm going from Krakow to Frankfurt to Mannheim to Lehman to do an event there with a client, and then coming back, and then 4 days at home, and then NDC Oslo, and
Brugata.
And Brugata in Oslo on the Friday.
If you're in Oslo, Linebreakers will be doing a free gig after NDC Oslo at the Friday evening in Brugata, which is a lovely music venue just right by the Spectrum.
Looking forward to that. It's going to be fun.
That's going to be good. You do not need an NDC ticket to get into that.
Come along.
It is a free thing. Just buy beer to keep the pub happy.
And if you want a t-shirt, get one on the website before the gig because we're not selling t-shirts this time because my word, I'm never doing that again.
You got some good t-shirts out of it though.
Yeah, we did. Do you know how many good t-shirts you could have got for half of the money that we lost selling good t-shirts?
Well, yes.
Quite a lot.
Yes.
So,
but still.
Yes.
Yes,
and then I'm at Takarama in Antwerp.
Yes,
and then I'm at Craft in Budapest. And then I'm at DevSum in Stockholm. And then I'm at Code Garden in Odense in Denmark. And then I'm at Code Europe in Krakow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Whereas hopefully I'll be doing something else that I can't talk about yet. But
secret.
I hope to be able to talk about it soon.
Cool.
So that would be good.
And everyone needs to go and buy my Dome Train course because I have to plug that again. If you go to dometrain.com, sending email in .NET from 0 to hero is everything you need to know about sending email in .NET, and it's really, really awesome. And I keep getting reviews coming for it, and so far they are all 5 stars. So,
excellent.
Which is lovely. So, and there's a discount if you buy it before the end of April. It's like 40% off everything, so go and do that.
No, wait until the discount is finished because then Dylan will get more money.
The thing about sending email in Python when I am not the person to tell you how to do that.
All I do know about Python is that apparently you shouldn't be using pip install email. You should now be using UV install email or something. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah.
Python for me has never achieved the critical mass of productivity that makes me go, I like this and I will spend more time with it. So
Python 2, there was a brief period when it was like Python 2.3, I
Mm.
want to say, where I did actually write throwaway scripts in Python.
Mm.
But definitely, you know, nothing
Yeah.
big. People do write big. I mean, Dropbox was famously originally written in Python.
Really?
Well, the server-side stuff, yeah, it was all Python.
Wow.
Because it didn't need, they weren't doing a huge amount of processing. They could extend it with C if they needed to do anything fast, and it was a very, very quick way to get to market. So yeah, all the sort of C++ programmers were working on the client software.
I'm going to say something now which is probably going to upset people in the chat. And I don't want to upset people in the chat, honestly. I love you all. But extending Python with C is always like, we've got this rubber spatula, and if you need to do anything else, it's got a chainsaw hidden in it.
Yes.
Like, very, very accessible, very friendly. I need to do something a little bit harder. Okay, hang on to your hat.
Of course, so you can extend Python with Zig. So, you know.
Excellent.
Yes.
Anyway,
I will
thank you for tuning in, folks. We will be back next week since
we
we're
will.
not going to Australia.
Yeah.
So yeah, same time next week. Have a lovely week, everybody. You folks look after each other, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then. Bye.